Welcome everyone to another DUC Migrating to Australia podcast. My name is Wes and I'm joined by Vic O'Neill. So, Vic, welcome.
Hi, Wes. How are you?
Good, getting good at these little podcasts. You're becoming a regular contributor.
Yeah.
So, Vic, before we get started, just give us a quick rundown. You're a registered migration agent. How many years you been a migration agent for, Vic?
Just going to show my age. 17, I think now.
There you go. So 17 years. And in this episode, we're going to talk about parent visas
Yep.
because we process so many visas and we get lots of questions regarding can my parent join? What's the best option for parents? When can they, are they eligible? There's so many questions on there. So we thought listeners would just do a little podcast to sort of give you a quick insight of what's involved in a parent visa, how it works, and just pick the brains of someone who's processed how many parent visas, Vic, do you reckon you processed in total in your 17 years?
Quite a few. How many have been granted? Not so many, because they're all still sitting there.
Now you better explain that or you might scare the listeners off. So just with that, you put them through, they arrive in Australia, and then how long would the visa take to get granted?
Currently, the age parent 804 visa is likely never to be granted in their lifetime. So they come over, apply for the visa, they will get a bridging visa, and that allows them to stay in Australia for the rest of their days. The 864 is currently up at about 12 years processing. But I'll explain a bit about that when we get to that bit, because of just the differences and which visa you choose.
Yeah, it already sounds complicated. So they can come to Australia, live here. They can't work here, I guess, then can they?
Yes, you can work here.
Wow. So you can work here, live here. Do you get access to Medicare and all that stuff?
If you're from the UK or reciprocal countries, yep.
Wow. So you come here, you enter on a visa, and then
Mhm.
knowing that that visa will probably be granted after the time the person's maybe no longer with us because that's how long they're taking. Because when we talk about the age of parent visas, 63 and all of that, that's where I guess you're saying that not many actually get granted, but they still do it and they can still live and, do
Yeah,
what they need to do in Australia.
yeah. It's crazy. And
It's a
there's
it's a
another,
fascinating visa, this one.
yeah, it's changed so much since COVID, because obviously with people not being able to move countries and see their family, parent visas have just really gone through the roof, the amount of applications. A contributory parent before COVID took about 4 years, and now they're saying 12 to 14 years because they've got so many.
It's crazy. It's absolutely
Yeah.
madness, our friends at immigration. But it's a fantastic visa. That means if your parents are eligible, they can get here. So let's crack on with some questions, Vic. So do you have to have children living in Australia?
Yes.
Okay.
And depending on the number of children you have to meet the balance of family test. So this is more than half of their children living in Australia as permanent residents or citizens than any other country.
Okay. So if you've got 3 kids, you would need 2 of them in Australia, or if you've got 2 children, one of them has to be a permanent resident or a citizen for the parent to be eligible for the parent visa.
Yeah.
Okie doke. What resident requirements do the children have to meet?
So if you're citizen or permanent residents, they say usually settled in Australia. And a lot of people say they have to be here for 2 years. You can apply earlier and sponsor your parents if you have a job, if you've purchased a house, if you can show that basically you intend to stay here forever.
Yeah, so if you're committed to Oz, that sort of ticks their
Yeah.
boxes.
Yeah.
And just for the listeners out there, this isn't a do-it-yourself parent visa podcast. This is just general questions and information to help you. And obviously, our team will be there in the background, able to process these visas as we do on a regular basis.
Mhm.
Can they can they apply at any age?
No. So this is the thing with a parent visa is to be eligible to apply on shore, you have to be aged, and the current age for aged is 67.
Wow. Okay.
So, and if you look at what's happened in the past, this increases at every 2 years. The age increases by 6 months. So I think the next increase will be July next year. And it might go to 67 and a half. That's what, from the pattern I've looked at. But I don't know when they're going to stop because they can't keep increasing it. Otherwise, eventually you'll be 100. So
Yeah.
just watch this space.
That's the thing with immigration listeners. It's always a watch this space and listen to
Yeah.
the changes that we'll release in in our webinars and on the podcast and everything else. We'll try give you as much information as we can. So are they better off applying onshore or offshore?
Okay. So for definitely onshore. Like
Okay.
I don't even see the point in applying offshore with processing times. So if they are 67 and they can apply onshore, then definitely do the onshore visa. When you do that, there are two options. There's the age parent, which is the cheaper one, that will never be granted, or there is the contributory parent visa, where you have to pay the government a substantial amount of money. I think it works out with processing fees and bonds, etc. You're looking at about 120,000 Australian dollars for a couple. But with processing, if you're 67 when you can apply for this visa and you're not actually going to get any visa granted for 12 to 14 years, you're going to be nearly 80 by the time you get this visa granted. Why would you give the government $120,000 when you're 80? So I always suggest they go the 804 because it just seems to make more sense to me.
Yep. Fair play.
You can still stay here, etc., get your Medicare. Yeah, and it's a lot cheaper.
Be the best babysitter for your, be the best babysitter, contribute that way to the family. I think that's what most people generally want, for like when I'm chatting to our clients, like, oh my God, we miss mum and dad not being here, just even helping out with the kids. And obviously the grandparents are the same. I just want to hang out with the kids. Obviously the perks of the weather as well, but.
Oh, definitely. And the thing is with the parent visa, so like when you get your bridging visa, you get work rights. So you can actually go and work if you want to.
So good.
Mm.
God, Australia is a good country to come to. The consideration of getting parents over and all that as well. I think it's just another little value add that we do. What if you don't meet the balance of the family test? Do you have any other visa options?
So if you don't meet the balance of family test, the only option you've got is the 870, which is the temporary parent visa. This one is a bit different. It's you can choose to apply for a 3-year or a 5-year visa. It works out quite expensive, I think. For example, if you do a 5-year visa, it's just short of $12,000 for the immigration fees, and that's for both parents. So if you've got two parents, you're looking at more. They also can't work on that visa. And then at this current date, you have to leave the country when it expires. They are looking at changing that. But right now, when it expires, you have to leave the country before you can apply for anything else.
Oh, there you go.
I asked someone the other week, why was this visa even brought in? It just seems so silly. It's expensive. You can't stay very long, etc. This was really brought in for people who don't meet balance of family test and whose children have come over, for example, and they're working. And daycare costs are so high, so they bring the parents over to look after the children for them, pretty much.
So when you say you ask these people, these are at your CPDs when you're at, with the MIA and you're doing all the migration
Yeah,
extra training that you got to do each year, correct?
yeah,
And
yeah.
and
So
in the and
we,
in and when you go to those meetings, how do you find them? Obviously, it's compulsory for migration agents to attend because you've got to do the learning. And what's the just I guess not so much with parent visas, but just in general, what are the migration agents feeling and saying? You mentioned this one's a bit of a crazy one. You have to ask why it's invented. Is this a common thing with visas where migration agents are like, wow, what's the purpose of that one?
um, probably not. So, I mean, obviously, people. It's good because a lot of agents work on their own, so it's good for people to mix, mingle, and just pick each other's brains and get information about visas. And there's so many visas as out there. You can't know everything about all of them. I know I still learn stuff every day, and I've been doing this forever. But yeah, it's just good, and you can find out. Like for example, if you're doing a employer visas, sort of you'll see trends and stuff happening, and just talking to other agents, you can see what's happening out there, and it's good.
Yeah, good stuff. So, Vic, just give me a few scenarios. So, what if a parent's, for example, I don't know, 63, have three children, two are living in Australia, maybe one in the UK? What is the best option for that parent to, yeah, what is the best option? They're 63 with two children, sorry, having three children and two are living in
Yeah.
Australia.
Okay, so in this situation, the parents don't meet the age parent requirement, so they can't apply on shore. But because they are so close to being aged, my advice to them is visit your children on holiday for a couple of years and then look at when you can apply on shore. Um, they meet the balance of family, but they can do an 870 if they wanted or were desperate to come for 3 years while they're waiting. But in this case, where somebody's 63, they do meet balance of family, my advice would be go on some holidays, have come over, you can do a year tourist visa, for example, visit the children. And then when you are aged, come over, apply on shore, and then you can stay here forever.
Cool. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to give you a few more scenarios. Put you under the pump here,
Yeah,
Vic.
sure.
Bit of a test. Okay, so what if the parents are 69, have three children, two in
Mhm.
Australia as permanent residents, and one in the UK? How would that differ?
So if they are 69, they're eligible to apply for their aged parent visa. So they can either apply for an 804 or an 864. Those are both onshore applications. So they would come over on, I'm using UK obviously, for example, but they can come over on a 651 3-month tourist visa. I suggest if they want to do this, they start preparing the application before they come. When they get here, we do all the paperwork, and it is a paper-based application. Um, so we get all that together, submit it when they're here. They then go on to a bridging visa at the end of that 3 months, and they can stay here again forever. The only thing for them to decide is, do they want to do the 804, which basically they will never get, or do they want to pay the money to the government to become a resident when they're probably 83 or something, and then they're permanent residents at that point. So it's
Awesome.
down to people's funds a lot of the time. With 120,000, that would cover your cost of the FIRB if you wanted to buy a house and that sort of thing. So there's just a few considerations which, when we consult with parents, I would discuss with them.
Yeah, I guess you definitely have to do that with these ones, really break it down. All right, let's go one more scenario.
Mhm.
Let's say the parents are 69, have three children, one living in Australia as a permanent resident, and two in the UK.
Okay, so in this instance, they are aged, but they don't meet balance of family. So you either need to convince one of your other two children to move, Some people have actually asked me if they can disown one of their children. I'm like, no, it doesn't quite work like that. But the only option for them would be the 870, the temporary one, because that one doesn't require meeting balance family test.
Excellent. So if you've got one child and they're living over here, then that's absolutely fine, obviously then.
Yeah, so if you've got one child, there is actually a table. And for example, if you have one child, one living in Australia, yes, you meet balance of family. If you have 4 children, one lives here and there's 3 in 3 other countries, then no, you don't. However, if you had 5 children, for example, 3 of them, 2 of them, sorry, live in Australia, and you have 3 other children who live in 3 different countries, so you got one in the UK, one in South Africa, and one in New Zealand, you still meet balance of family because you've got more than 50% here and more than in any other one country.
Awesome. Really well explained. Cool. Well, guys, look, that was a quick. Well, before I finish, anything you'd like to add to this one, Vic?
No, I think we do get a lot of inquiries about parents. And obviously, if they're in that, I call it the limbo stage, so anything between 60 and 67, where they can't apply on shore, then we'll suggest alternatives. Some people could come over and work if they wanted to. If they, on a 482, for example, if they still need to work and they don't want to do the 870, each one is just different. I'm just going to say, because I think this is quite amusing. With the parent visa, like say the 804, it's relatively cheap. I think it costs you for 2 people to the immigration fees are probably 7,500, something like that. You put that in. This visa won't ever be granted. And as we know, we're not all going to live forever. So the chances are your parents will pass away before this comes in. At this moment, you can actually claim a refund on the fees when they pass.
Wow.
So they sit here for 20 years and then the child can get the money back.
Look at investment. It's just
I just think
crazy.
that is the weirdest thing ever. I don't know why. It just makes me laugh.
Well, it's just odd. It's just
Yeah, it is odd. It's
strange.
so
But there you
odd
go.
because you can't get refunds for so many other things, but you can for that.
Very good. Well, guys, look, we put this little podcast together because you guys asked us to do that. So if you have got any other podcasts you'd like us to throw together on where we can ask one of the experts like Vic or another member of our team that specialize in, visas or whatever, then do reach out to our team and ask us, because it's the whole reason why we did this one. So Vic, thank you much for, giving us the time and sharing that knowledge, and we'll catch you on the next one, and we'll speak to you guys soon, listeners. Take care, everyone. Bye.